This is Aleph Beit. Fix the volume here. Okay. From when is the Shema read in the morning? When one is able to distinguish between tekelit and white. Rav Eliezer says when one can distinguish between tekelit and green, and he finishes until sunrise. And Rav Yeshua says, for such is the custom of princes to rise at 3 hours. Whoever reads from then onwards has not lost, like one who reads the Torah. Beit Shammai says, in the evening everyone must recline and read, and in the morning he must stand erect, since it is said, when you lie down and when you rise up. Beit Hillel says, everyone may read as it suits him, since it says, and when you walk by the way. If so, why does it state, and when you lie down and when you rise up? The time when people lie down and the time when people are up. Reb Tarfon said, I was once on the road and I reclined to read in conformity with Beit Shammai and endangered my life because of robbers. They said to him, you deserve to forfeit your life since you did not act in accordance with the words of Beit Hillel. In the morning, one recites two blessings, before it and one after it. In the evening, two before it and two after it, one long one and one short. Wherever they lay down a long formula, one is not permitted to shorten, and a short formula, one is not permitted to lengthen. To recite an end formula, one is forbidden not to recite the end formula. When not to recite an end formula, one is not permitted to recite an end formula. We're
Okay.
not to recite. We're not to recite an end formula. Okay. All
Okay.
right.
Now, one of the most famous Mishnayos in the world, Mazkirin Yetzias Mitzrayim Balaylos. We mentioned the Yetzias Mitzrayim at night. Now, that's talking about part of Kriyas Shema. The third paragraph has
Right.
of its the remembrance of coming out of Mitzrayim. Amar Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, said Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Hare Anika ben Shivim Shana. I am like a 70-year-old man. And I could not work out the proof that we should have to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim at night. Ad Darasha ben Zoma, and Paul ben Zoma, who's the big darshan, he came and taught me this drasha. Shenemar Leman tizkor es yom tzeisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yimei chayecha, so that you should remember the day that you came out of Egypt, all the days of your life. Yemei chayecha hayamim. If it had just said Yemei chayecha, then I would have said, okay, you only have to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim by day. Kol yimei chayecha haleilos. But if it says kol yimei chayecha, then that includes the nights as well. Chachamim omrim Yemei chayecha haolam hazeh kol yimei chayecha lavi limos Mashiach. So the Chachamim who were the contemporaries of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah did not agree with him. They said that you don't have to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim at night. The whole drasha, what's the extra word coming for, is to teach that also in the Mos HaMashiach you'll also have to say Kriyas Shema. There's a lot of arichas in the commentary about this argument over here, but it turns out that in this case we actually hold like Ben Zoma and like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and we do have to mention the Kriyas Shema, which is part of the reason why we say the third paragraph of Shema at night as well, because the third paragraph is mostly about tzitzis, and tzitzis are a daytime mitzvah. So why do we mention that? In order to be yotzei on the Hazkara of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Okay, Perik Beis. Hayak Kori B'Torah. So a guy was doing Parshas Shavua or whatever, and he's in Parshas Bahalosecha, and he comes to the part of where the first paragraph of Shema is read, which it's got Shema Yisrael.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at this and says, hey, it's about the time to be Yotzei with Kriyas Shema. So why don't I, as part of my review, I'll be Yotzei with the mitzvah. Higia lezman hamikra, im kivein libo. So if he had such an intention, Yotza, absolutely. No reason why you can't be Yotzei at the same time as you're learning Torah. V'im lav lo yatza. However, if he did not have kavanah specifically to be Yotzei and Kriyas Shema, then he is not fulfilled the mitzvah. Now that, I mentioned it, I think, in passing yesterday, but there's an argument about, do mitzvahs need kavanah? Okay, and that's talking. There's a machlokes about this when the mitzvah involves an action. So, for example, if somebody walked into, if somebody just picked up a lulav and esrog and said, "Hey, that's an interesting thing over there," Wow, this looks interesting. And it turns out he's picked up Lulav and Esrog and he picked it up Kalacha, but he had no intention to fulfill the mitzvah. Did he fulfill the mitzvah?
Mhm.
Okay, and so that's a question where there's a bit of a debate, but everyone agrees that when there's no action, for example, with Kriyas Shema, all you're doing is saying the words. So it's not, words are not considered an action. Everyone agrees that you're required to have kavanah. Okay. But prakim shoel mipnei hakavod umeishiv. So now this moves into the subject of, can you be interrupted while you're saying Kriyas Shema? Can you make an interruption? So Rabbi Meir is the first opinion that we're going to see over here. He says that you can shoel mipnei hakavod. So if you see somebody that you're obligated to honor, like your father or your rebbe, then if you're in between the paragraphs, as we'll see what the definition is later, but let's say in between the paragraphs of Shema, you're allowed to say Shalom Aleichem Mori Berebi. Okay. Umeshiv, and obviously if his rebbe initiates the greeting to him, then for sure he can answer in those spaces. Well, the emtza, what happens if you're in the middle of a paragraph? Shoel mipnei hayira umeshiv divi Rabbi Meir. Then he can only do this for somebody that he's actually in fear of. So, for example, a king.
Right.
There you've got a yira, and you would be causing severe affront if you did not make a greeting then. And obviously, then you can also reply, says Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda omer be'emtza shoel mipnei hayira umeishiv mipnei hakavod. Now, Rabbi Yehuda makes a distinction between initiating the greeting and responding to the greeting. Okay, he says that he agrees with Rabbi Meir that you can only initiate a greeting in the middle if it's because of yira, but if you're in the middle of the paragraph and somebody comes and greets you, and it's like your rebbe or your father or somebody that you're chayav in kavod for, then you're allowed to respond even in the middle of the paragraph. But prakim, but in between. Whatever we're going to see what the definition of the prakim is in a minute. But if you're at a break, shoel mipnei hakavod umeishiv shalom lechol adam. So there he's allowed to initiate the greeting. He agrees with Rabbi Meir on that. You're allowed to initiate the greeting because of kavod. But anyone who comes and greets you when you're at that position, you're allowed to respond to lechol adam. So even like if a little kid comes up to you and says, "Hey, how are you doing?" You're allowed to respond to them in between the paragraphs. Okay, now comes Mishna Beis with the definition of what is Bein HaParakim. Bein Bracha Rishona L'Shniya, so Yotzer HaMeoros. So after Yotzer HaMeoros, you're allowed to interrupt, and for all of these things that Rabbi Yehuda said, and the halacha follows Rabbi Yehuda here. So you're allowed to make all those interruptions according to Rabbi Yehuda, Bein HaParakim, in between the brachas, bein shniya lishma. Now this is a very interesting one because a lot of communities are very machmir about not making an interruption, even to say amen between habuchei b'amo Yisrael b'ava and saying Kriyas Shema, because it's like you're saying a bracha and going straight into the asiyah. Look, I mean, a lot of communities are not so makpid, and you'll see in like the Art Scroll Siddur, it says answer amen after that bracha. But there are days and minhagim that you should not interrupt over there. But according to this Mishnah, that's called one of the Bein HaParakim, is between the bracha and actually saying Kriyas Shema. Okay, Bein Shema v'Hayam Shema. So in between the first and second paragraph, Bein v'Hayam Shema v'Yomer. So in between the second and third paragraph, Bein v'Yomer le'emes v'Yatziv, and after v'Yomer, there's a break between emes v'yatziv. And now Rabbi Yehuda comes and says, wait a second, Bein v'yomer v'emes v'yatziv lo yafsik. You shouldn't be interrupting because the pasuk ends Ani Hashem Elokeichem, and the next paragraph begins emes v'yatziv, but we always make sure are makpid to put the emes with the end of the pasuk. Ani Hashem Elokeichem emes. So, and the halacha there follows Rabbi Yehuda that we don't make a break between emes v'yatziv. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha. Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha, by the way, is the son of Rabbi Akiva. He's called Korcha a fun fact, Rav Haber says that Rabbi Akiva was not just bald, but probably had full alopecia. He had some other sources, and I'm not sure what his other sources were to prove that, but he was probably completely hairless. Um, so that's Rabbi Yeshua ben Karche. He was known as Rabbi Yeshua, the son of the bald one, who was completely kereach. Lama kadma shma v'hayim shamoah says, what's the reason why the first paragraph comes before the second paragraph? Now you can't answer because they're out of sequence, because the third paragraph actually comes from Sefer Bamidbar. So that should have been first if you want to go in sequence. So you've got to have a good reason. Why is Shema before V'hayayim Shemoah? Because the first thing is you've got to accept Hashem's kingship on you. And afterward, then we can talk about all of mitzvahs. Okay, because you taking mitzvahs before you've got Malchus Shemaim is out of order. Okay, so why is V'hayayim Shemoah Vayomer? Why does that come before Vayomer? She V'hayayim Shemoah noheg bayom uvalayla Vayomer eno noheg ela bayom. So the main thrust of the third paragraph is about tzitzis, which is only applicable by day. However, bearing in mind the Mishna that we just learned today about Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and learning Kriyas and having Kriyas Yitzias Mitzrayim at night, that might not be such a strong reason. It's just because this helps us to be Yotzei the mitzvah. But you could be Yotzei with anything. You could just say, "Oh, I remember that we came out of Mitzrayim every night," and that would also do it. But the mitzvah of tzitzis comes third in that respect because it's only noig by daytime. Okay. Chazara.
Okay. Starting with Zabim, I have to have on the side here. So
Uktin first.
let's go first. And we have Gimel, base Gimel.
Yes.
Regarding a pomegranate or a watermelon or a portion of which is rotten, that portion does not combine. If the fruit is complete on either side and rotten in the middle, it does not combine. The pitum of a pomegranate combines, but its nates does not combine. And Reb Eliezer says even the matrik is tahor. All peels contract tuma and convey tuma and combine. Reb Yehuda says there are 3 peels on an onion. The innermost peel, whether it is whole or perforated, combine. The middle peel, if it is whole, it combines, but if it's perforated, it does not combine. And the outermost peel is in either case is tahor. Regarding one who cuts food in order to cook it, even though he has not completed the cut, is not a connection. But if he cut it in order to preserve it, or to overcook it, or to place it on the table, it is considered a connection. If he began to separate the sections, the food with which he began to separate is not considered a connection. And regarding walnuts that one braided together, or onions that he bunched together, these are a connection. If he began to take them apart in case of walnuts, or peel them in the case of onions, it is not a connection. And the shells of walnuts, almonds are a connection, and until one crushes them.
Okay. Machshirin.
Okay. Vav Zion. In the following do not convey tuma, nor they affect texture. Sweet, pus, and excrement, and the blood that emerges with them, and the fluids of a child born in the 8th month. Reb Yossi says, except for his blood, and someone who drinks the water of Tiberias, even though the excretion that emerges is clear. Blood of slaughter of an domesticated animal or a non-domesticated animal, and a fowl that are non-kosher, and blood of bloodletting for therapeutic purposes. Reb Elazar considers these to be tamei. Reb Shimon ben Elazar says milk of a male is tahor. The milk of a woman will cause susceptibility to tumah, whether its emergence is to one's satisfaction or not to one's satisfaction. But the milk of an animal will only cause susceptibility to tumah if its emergence is to one's satisfaction. The Berachos said the matter can be proven through a kal v'chomer. For if a milk of a woman which is intended only for children will cause susceptibility to tumah, whether its emergence was to one's satisfaction or was not to one's satisfaction, In animal milk, which is intended for both children and adults, is it not logical that it should cause susceptibility to tumor, regardless of whether its emergence was to one's satisfaction or not, was not to one's satisfaction? The sages said the sages said to him, "Not so. For if the milk of a woman that did not emerge to one's satisfaction generates susceptibility to tumor, it is because the blood of her wound causes susceptibility to tumor. With the milk of an animal that did not emerge to one's satisfaction, likewise generates susceptibility to tumor, when the blood of its wound does not cause susceptibility to tumor." Reb Akiva said to them, "I am more stringent regarding milk than I am regarding blood. For if one expresses milk for therapeutic reasons, the milk will cause susceptibility to tumor. But if one lets blood for therapeutic reasons, the blood will not cause susceptibility to tumor." And the Chachamim say to Reb Akiva, the law concerning baskets of olives or grapes will serve as a proof. For if liquids ooze from the baskets to the owner's satisfaction, they'll cause a susceptibility to tumor. Now, liquids ooze not to his satisfaction, they will not cause susceptibility to tumor. He said to them, "Not so. If you say, thus concerning baskets of olives and grapes, it is because in the beginning the fruits were a food, and the liquid was oozes is a beverage. We will say the same concerning milk. The beginning and the end of which was a beverage. Until this point was the response." Reb Shimon said, "From here on, we will answer in his presence as follows. Rainwater will serve as a proof, since in the beginning and in the end it is a beverage, and yet does not cause susceptibility to tumor, unless it emerged to one's satisfaction. He said to us, not so. If you say thus concerning rainwater, it is because the majority of rainwater is not for the benefit of people, but for the benefit of land and trees, and the majority of milk is for the benefit of people." Okay. 111. Okay.
Adonalach Masechet Machshirin. Okay, Zav in one Mishnah.
There we go. Regarding someone who had an Azav emission, Bet Shammai says he is like a woman who deserves a day free of uterine discharges, corresponding to the day on which she experienced a uterine discharge. But Beis Hillel says he is like someone who had a seminal emission. If he had one Azav emission on the second day and stopped, and on the third day he had two emissions or one emission that is as lengthy as two, Bet Shammai says he is a full Zav. But Beis Hillel says he conveys tumor to couches and seats and requires immersion in a spring, but is exempt from an offering. But Elazar ben Yehuda said, thus Beis Shammai says, agrees with this case, and he's not a full Zav. And regarding what do they disagree? Regarding someone who has two emissions or one emission that is lengthy as two, and on the second day he stopped, and on the third day he had one emission, in which case Beis Shammai says he is a full Zav. But Beis Hillel says he conveys tumor to couches and seats and requires immersion in a spring, but he's exempt as an offering. Okay. Okay, Gimel Ches. Regarding a child who was found next to a dough, and there was a piece of dough in his hand, the mirror rules the dough tahor. But the sages rule it kame because it is the nature of a child to pat dough. Regarding a dough which has chickens' peck marks, and there is a tummy liquid inside of the house, if there was a space between the liquid and the loaves for the chickens to dry their mouths on the ground, the dough is tahor. And as regards a cow or a dog, if there was sufficient space for it to lick its lips with its tongue, and as regarded by all other and as regard all other animals, if there is a space enough for the liquid to dry, Reb Eliezer ben Yaakov declares the dough tahor in the case of a dog, for it is intelligent and it is not its time, and it's not nature to leave aside food and go to water. If one throws tumor from place to place, whether he throws a loaf among keys or a key among loaves, the loaves are tahor. The Yehuda says if one throws a leaf among keys, the loaf is tameh, but if one throws a key among the loaves, the leaves are tahor. If a sheretz was in the mouth of a weasel and the weasel was walking over bread loaves of truma, and it is questionable whether he touched the loaves or did not touch them, the doubt is ruled tahor.
Hey.
And we are on to
Me'ilah.
A householder said consecrated money with a deaf, mute, deranged person, or a minor. And if they carried out his assignment, the householder has committed a me'ilah. If he did not carry out his assignment, the storekeeper has committed me'ilah. If the householder sent the money with a competent person and remembered that the money was consecrated before the agent reached the storekeeper will have committed Ne'ilah when he spends the money. What should he do? He takes a pruta or a utensil and says, the consecrated pruta, wherever it is deconsecrated unto this, since consecrated items can be redeemed with money or with tame that are with money, items that are worth money. If the householder gave the agent a pruta, and he said to him, "Bring me lamps with half of the pruta and wicks with half of the pruta," and the agent went and brought his lamps with the entire pruta, or wicks with the entire pruta, or if the householder said to the agent, "Bring me lamps with the entire pruta," or "Bring me wicks with the entire pruta," and the agent went and brought him lamps with half of it and half wicks with half of it, neither of them have committed me'ilah. If the householder said to him, the agent, "Bring me lamps with half of the pruta from this such and such a place, and wicks with half of the pruta from such and such a place," and the agent went and brought his lamps from the house of wicks and wicks to the house of lamps, the lamp agent has committed me'ilah. If the householder gave the agent two prutas and said to him, "Bring me an esrog," and the agent went and brought him an esrog with one pruta and a pomegranate with one pruta, both of them have committed me'ilah. Rabbi Yehuda says the household that has not committed me'ilah, for he can say to the agent, would have wanted a superior esrog, and you brought me a small inferior one. But if the householder gave the agent a gold dinner and said to him, "Bring me a shirt," and the agent went and brought him a shirt with three of the Salem and a cloak with three of the Salem, both of them have committed me'ilah. Rabbi Yehuda says the household that has not committed me'ilah, where he can say to the agent, "I would have wanted a superior shirt, and you brought me a small inferior one."
Okay.
Regarding one,
That's it.
okay, we're going to go on to something else next week.
Oh, okay. After Mila is Tamid.
Tamid, okay. All right. Baba, let's see that.
Hmm.
Okay. Vav. Until when is he required to announce? Until there is time for neighbors to know of it. And these are the words of Reb Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says the 3 festivals and 7 days after the last festival, so that he has 3 days to go home and 3 days to return and 1 day to announce. If he mentioned the lost article but did not mention the distinguishing features, he should give them to him. As a deceiver, although he mentions the distinguishing features, he should not give it to him, as it is said, until your brother seeks it, which is interpreted as meaning until you test your brother to determine whether he is a deceiver or whether he is not a deceiver. Anything that works, then each shall work, and anything that does not work, but each shall be sold, as it is said, and you shall return it to him, which is interpreted as meaning we see how you shall return to work. What shall be with the money? Reb Tarfon says he may use it, therefore, if he is lost, he is responsible for it. Rabbi Akiva says he may not use it, therefore, if it is lost, he is not responsible for it. If he found scrolls, he may read them once in 30 days. If he does not know how to read, he should draw them. However, should he not study in them for the first time, nor should he read should another read with him. If he found a garment, he should shake it out once in 30 days and spread it out for the benefit, but not for his honor. As the silverware and the copperware, he should use them for their benefit, but not to wear them out. As for gold utensils and glassware, he may not touch them until Eliyahu comes. And if he found a sack or a basket of anything that is not accustomed to taking, he need not take it.
Okay.
And,
Sachim.
hey, Zion, if someone is going to slaughter his Pesach offering to circumcise his son or to dine at a betrothal feast at the house of his father-in-law, and he remembers that he has a chametz at home, if he's able to return it, he's able to return, remove it, and then return to his mitzvah, he must go back and remove it, and if not, he nullifies it in his heart. If he, on his way to save people from a marauding troop, from a river, from bandits, from a fire, or from a collapsed building, he nullifies it in his heart. If he was but to establish a voluntary resting place, he must return at once. Similarly, if someone left Jerusalem and remembered that he had sacrificial meat in his hand, he has not passed Tofim. He burns it where he is. If not, he must return it and burn it before the temple with the wood of the altar pyre. And for how much chametz of meat must he return? Rav Meir says in either case when there is as much as an egg. Rabbi Yehuda says in either case when there is as much as an olive. But the comments say for sacrificial meat as much as an olive, and for chametz as much as an egg. Okay. One more?
One more.
when it is customary to do work on the eve of Pesach until midday, we may do the work. But where it's customary not to work, we may not do the work. If one goes from where they do work to where they do not, or when they do not, when they do, or where they do not to where they do, we lay upon him the stringencies of the place which he has left and the stringencies of the place to which he has gone. Let no man deviate his own local customs to avoid conflict. Okay,
Okay.
okay, good.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you.